Hello everybody and welcome back to Flight Past, and today we are talking about the US Airborne, and we are in Georgia in the USA, and we're going to follow the path of the 101st Airborne from here in Toccoa, Georgia, all the way to the eve of the D-Day on the 5th of June. We will be looking at RAF Pottery in Devon. If you're new to the channel, Flight Pass is a channel that I'm using Microsoft Flight Simulator at the moment because of its aerial imagery to look at key moments of history from the air to see if we can get any further understanding. We've already looked at the British Airborne operation on the eastern flank of the invasion beaches, and their job to secure that bridgehead over the River Orme. If you haven't seen that, go and check out the previous episodes, and I will put some cards up in the corner here for you to do that. But now we're moving to the western end of the invasion beaches, and the similar role that the US Airborne Divisions had in securing the western flank. So we begin, though, we're going to be talking about the 101st Airborne, and of course you can't talk about 101st Airborne without some talk of Easy Company, who were members of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. This is their logo, and what you can see in this logo is they have a shape of a mountain, and in the green, and if you look on the distance over there, you'll see that similar shape, and this is Currahee Mountain in Stevens County, Georgia. And what we're going to do, I'm going to jump into the Beechcraft aircraft here, and we're going to take off, and we're going to go and have a look at this this mountain. Now, this is live. We always keep it live. It's always a good idea in this day and age to make sure that nothing's absolutely perfect. So feel free to jump in if I make mistakes. But let's get going. Brakes off. I just started flying this Beechcraft recently. I've been in the Cessna 172, but I find that this Beechcraft is a lot faster. I just bring the gears up, flaps up, and then we'll head. We've got an over torque. Let's see if I can bring that back. There we go. And we'll head over to this mountain. So this is Currahee. We're talking. It's a Cherokee name. It's pronounced Currahee, I believe. Anyway, it means standing alone, and you can see quite clearly, you know, it does stand alone. It's 1,700 35 feet, which is above sea level. It's 800 feet above the surrounding terrain here. And it's the southernmost, it marks the southernmost peak of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So you can see why it's called standalone. And of course, you know, with parachute training, a mountain that has that name, it very quickly gets associated with the 101st Airborne and 506th Parachute Regiment. Let's pull back the speed here a little bit. Previous history, 1864. It was the site of the called the Battle of the Narrows, which is also known as the Battle of Currahee, which is Civil War, where the Confederate troops defeated the Union forces. The year and the date we're talking here is July 1942. This is when the 506th Infantry turned up here for their training. Now, if anybody knows this area better than I do, which we see in the Band of Brothers, you could think that the camp was down here on this plain somewhere, and I don't think it was. But if anybody has better knowledge than me on that, then let me know. Now, let's move from Currahee. We're going to go to Camp Toccoa. Now, Camp Toccoa is on the north side of the mountain, so we're just going to circle around and head up in this direction here. After the war, it became a prisoner camp for Georgia State. For young offenders, but it was closed then, I believe, in the 1950s. So we should be seeing it here now. This is the camp here on the left. This is Camp Toccoa. This was originally called Camp Tombs, but when Colonel Robert Sink arrived, he didn't like the association with death, so he lobbied for it to be renamed Camp Toccoa. This was built 1930s under Roosevelt's Roosevelt's Work Progress Administration, It was completed in 1938. Sorry, it was completed in 1940. And this is where became the basic training camp for the Airborne Infantry from 1942 onwards. So when we talk about Easy Company, they were here in July 1942. So they were one of the original group here. Eventually, this camp trained over 17,000 paratroopers, and it was the basic training for the 501st, the 506th, the 511th, and the 517th Parachute Infantry Regiments of the 101st Airborne. So here it was, because the Airborne was a voluntary thing. It was here that they separated the wheat from the chaff, with focusing on basically intense physical training, making sure that the guys who would move on to parachute training had the right attitude. And of course, it's famous for its run. Now I'm going to jump out here. And we're going to have a closer look at this camp. So it's famous for its run. The motto of the 506 is there's, they got standalone, but they call out 3 miles up, 3 miles down. Currahee is their war cry. And this is, I thought we'd just follow the route. So you can see the entrance to the camp here. There is a Toccoa. I believe there's a museum here now, and there's some huts. But the run would involve moving up this road here. And this is depicted several times in the first episode of Band of Brothers. Whilst we're there, we might as well show this guy. This is Captain Herbert Sobo. So he was there was a love-hate relationship with this guy, because he was very tough, very strict. Probably what was exactly needed at this time. There was no love lost with this guy. I think you get the sense, they respected what he did to them and for them. But as you probably know, if anyone has watched Band of Brothers, he was very good at this sort of basic physical training and stuff, but tactically in the field he was lacking. And so this would be the 3 miles up to the top of Currahee. This here is Colonel Sink. And he was the one responsible for building this sort of esprit de corps of the 506th. He insisted that his regiment would be the best. He instigated things like marches from Camp Toccoa to Atlanta, which 2nd Battalion of the 506th, which is, well, an easy company belongs to, achieved in 75 hours. It's 118 miles. And up here, there's now some masts. I think they're radio masts and the like. And then, of course, then there were 3 miles back here. Interesting thing about Camp Toccoa is it didn't have adequate rifle ranges. They actually had to march 30 miles to a place called Clemson Agricultural College in South Carolina, which is surprising, isn't it? With all this terrain and not having a rifle range, it seems a bit weird, but that's the case. And the other thing was that the airfield which she took off from, the runway wasn't long enough to cater adequately for the C-47 aircraft, and there was an accident, and so the parachute training part was moved from here to Fort Benning. So as you can see, though, the site today is mostly overgrown. There is a Dakota, as you can see here, that marks the entrance. And there is a museum that's got photos, memorabilia, and things like that. So what I'm going to do now is let's just jump back into the aircraft. And what we can do is we'll fly back to Toccoa, and then we'll move on from here to Fort Benning. Got this is well, it was Lieutenant Dick Winters at the time. This is a picture of him. So yeah, so now you can see the significance of the 506th Regiment's badge. We will be doing the 82nd Airborne as well in the next episode. We're currently doing this. Right, let's find the airfield. So if you have any questions, then please leave them in the comments below. If you like this content, then please give it a like and a subscribe and all that lovely stuff. You can also join the Discord channel. It's called Flight Past. There's a link in my profile, the profile here. You'll see a bunch of notes, and you can add your own. So we're going to do a left downwind here, and we'll come into land, and then we'll move on to Fort Benning. I have been using the 172. It was a nice aircraft. The 172 Cessna's brilliant. It's just a little bit slow, but as you can see, we're doing this seems to be a lot better for the aerial exploration, so we're going to stick to this Beechcraft. I haven't flown it much, so I don't know its speeds and things. Let me just see if I can bring up. Trying to do this at the same time. Airspeed 70 to 80 knots is the airspeed we're looking for. Right, let's slow it down and I think that is geared, so we're bringing the gear down. And we'll put in some flaps. Yeah, we're just past the threshold. I'll try and keep it to 70 knots. Oh, stall warning. Yeah, let's turn in now. So this is the runway that was deemed a bit too short for the C-47s. So they moved the training to Fort Benning. Let's keep it on the numbers. Coming over the threshold now. Keeping those up. That will do me, monkey. That will do me. Right, so welcome to Toccoa. Let's leave it there, and we'll be back in a second, and we'll be talking about Fort Benning.